Hi everyone, it's Denise with Liquid Color and I am finally back. I'm so glad to be making videos again after such a long, crazy month in April, and I'm so sorry that I wasn't able to put out more content for you over the past few weeks. However, my show is finally over and it took me about a week to recover, but I should be able to resume my normal recording schedule from here on out. I have a lot of reviews lined up for May and well into June and July and however long it takes us to get through them. But I do want to give a huge thanks real quick to those of you who have been using my Amazon Associates links. You guys killed it during the month of March, and because of that, I'm going to be able to pick up some really great new things to review moving forward. If you haven't already seen from other social media, I recently shifted my voting perk on my Patreon down to the $1 level so that every one of my patrons has a voice in forming the content of this channel. I currently have a poll up for my patrons to let me know what they would like me to review with the funds coming from Amazon Associates, and I also have a second poll going regarding my next mini-series. I am super excited to tell you about that. However, I don't want to bore you with too much talking right at the start of the video. I will fill you in at the end of this video, but for now, let's go ahead and get started. Today I'm going to be taking a look at the Mission Gold Pure Pigment set. This was the most anticipated review from my patrons in a previous poll that they voted on under the category of, future reviews once I can acquire this and the funds and yada yada yada. But thanks to one of my viewers, Katherine, you don't have to wait because she sent me this beautiful, generous dot chart with all of the paints listed on them, all the information that I could possibly want. So thank you so much, Katherine, for sending this, and I'm really excited to take a look. Mission Gold is a Korean brand of watercolors, and they're often sold in these big value sets that are pretty affordable compared to the price of them when you buy them on their own to either replace certain colors or if you wanted to custom build your own palette. So what I'm saying is that on their own, they are not cheap. However, these sets are hugely, hugely discounted. So I want to go ahead and take a look at this Pure Pigment set to see if it's worth it, if the colors are colors that you'd actually use, so on and so forth. I do have a more in-depth review of Mission Gold paints, and I'll put a link to that video up in the cards above, but today we're just going to go ahead and swatch out the colors of this set and compare them to other brands with the same types of pigments. One of my chief complaints about Mission Gold in the past is that a lot of their paints are odd composite mixtures made up of multiple pigments. Even their colors like burnt sienna and burnt umber, which are usually only one pigment, are made out of 3, and even their ultramarine that they include with most of their other starting kits is made up of 2 different colors, which is really odd. The Pure Pigment set is an answer to that in that every color in this set is a single pigment watercolor. This set contains 24 15 milliliter tubes of paint and 2 7 milliliter tubes of Chinese white and ivory black. I think it's a really nice touch that they don't include white and black in the advertising, that they say this is a 24 color set, so big points for that. It is very heavy on the red tones, and in total there are 4 yellows, not including yellow ochre, 9 reds and magentas, 4 blues, 2 greens, and 5 earth tones, although 2 more of those earth tones could also be considered in the red category as well. So here I'm going to be swatching out all the colors on the piece of paper that Katherine sent me. She sent me a nice big 9x12 piece of watercolor paper with all the dots on there, and she has the common name that Mission Gold calls them, along with the pigment number. The number on there is the light fastness rating. It's a scale from 1 to 5, and every color in this set ranks as a 4 or a 5, so that's fantastic. And then that letter in the bottom corner is the price determination. So it goes A through E, with A being, I believe, the least expensive and E being the most expensive. I know how much time this can take to do a chart like this, so once again, everyone make sure to thank Katherine in the comments below for doing this for us so that we have this chart. After I was done swatching out this chart, I did also make my typical swatch cards that have the paint information, the name, the opacity rating, and the pigment numbers on them, and we're going to be taking a look at those compared to the other paints that I have in my swatch binder. Alright, so this is a 24 color set, and I don't think I've ever done a side-by-side comparison for a 24 color set. It's a lot, and it took a long time to film, so if I didn't speed this up a little bit, you would be here all day watching this video. So I did speed up the footage a little bit. Hopefully you can follow along. Remember, at any point you can go ahead and pause the screen, or you can also use the gear in the bottom right-hand corner to slow down the footage to say, I think, like 75% of the talking speed at which I'm currently going. So the first three yellows here are PY3, PY154, and PY65. It's a great trio of a cool, a medium, and a warm yellow that really should cover all of your bases. I've been using these three particular pigments pretty much since I started using watercolors, and I really enjoy them. Mission Golds are pretty much comparable to any other brand other than their lighter yellows might be a touch on the more opaque side, although it's really hardly noticeable. Next up, we have what they call green gold. It's PY150, but this is what the rest of the world would refer to as nickel azo yellow. I don't use it in my painting, but I know a lot of other people do enjoy using it, including Steve over at the Mind of Watercolor. I know it's on his main palette, and so he really values this color. It is more of a yellowish green color than the Nickel Azo Yellow by Daniel Smith here on the dark chart for you to compare, but it does match very closely the Coors Green Gold made from PY 129. If you've been around my channel for any length of time, you know that I do not care for this color whatsoever. It's PO 73, and they call their version red orange, although it's pyrrole orange usually in other brands. I recently used the Turner version in a challenge that I did, but that is the only time it has ever hit paper aside from a swatch card. Then we can go ahead and start looking at the other reds. We've got a lot of them. First off, we've got Permanent Red and Scarlet Lake. They are both made from PR112, and I am much more familiar with the Permanent Red version. The Scarlet Lake is a lot more orange, and it's kind of more comparable to the quinacridone Red Light from Schmincke. I think it would be good for floral painters. I don't know. I'm not a floral painter. I'm comparing it here to some of Schmincke's new dot cards, and it definitely matches some of those lighter tones that I assume would be useful for flowers, but I don't really have a purpose for it. Then we've got Permanent Red Deep, which is PR254. This is one of my favorite reds. It's Pyrrole Red in other brands, or Winsor Red and Winsor & Newton. Mission Gold's version is really highly pigmented. Like when you tint it out, it doesn't fade out as much, but it's not quite as dark in the mass tone as, like, say, Daniel Smith. And then next up, I've got Mission Gold's Cherry Red. This isn't a color I had seen before. It's PR209, and again, it matches some of those floral colors, but it's got a really weird, I don't know if it's granulation. It's just kind of an unpleasant texture to it, and by far, this was my least favorite color in this palette. Then I've got Rose Madder, which is PR176. This is Carmine, if it was compared to Daniel Smith's version. Daniel Smith's is much darker and a little bit more red, while Mission Gold's version is lighter and more pink. Then, okay, Permanent Rose, PV19 from Mission Gold. This is my absolute favorite version of quinacridone rose or quinacridone red or whatever you like to call it. It falls within the rose section of the color palette. It's not quite as pink as Van Gogh or Rembrandt's versions, but this is my ultimate favorite version of PV19 for any of my mixing uses. I find M. Graham's version to be a little bit too harsh and pigmented, and I find the pinker versions not to mix cleanly for oranges, so I really, really, really love Mission Gold's version. This is one of their E-rated colors in terms of pricing, and that means that the retail price of a tube is $30 USD. Yeah, it's high, so I've never been able to replace this color on its own. You can get it at Dyck and Jerry's and things like that for like $18 or $19, but that's still way too much for me to spend on a tube of paint. But it is my absolute favorite color from them. Now we're getting into the even pinkier pinks with Crimson Lake PR202. I think I've got one other version of this that is substantially lighter and of a different color from Schminke. The Crimson Lake is definitely more vibrant and a very, very bright, deep pink color. I've also got Permanent Magenta from Mission Gold, which they have as PR122. When I compare it to the Lucas, again, the Mission Gold's is much, much more vibrant and lively, but it's a little less vibrant than Core's version. Then I don't have a purple to show you because there's no purple in this set. Mission Gold doesn't seem to make a Dioxazine Violet, the PV23 on its own. They have a 3-color composite mixture that's called Bright Violet. That, again, I don't know why you need that many colors to make it a single color pigment. So my biggest pet peeve with Mission Gold, other than the weird 3 composite colors, is they have a lot of naming issues, and this might be a language or a translation type of situation. This is Phthalo Blue, but they call it Cerulean. Cerulean is obviously a different color, but as a Phthalo Blue, it's perfectly fine. It's comparable to any other Phthalo Blue that you'll ever see. And in this set, I was very happy to see that there is an Ultramarine Light, is what they call it, which is ultramarine to the rest of us. It's PV29. And I was actually kind of surprised. Mission Gold is known for having non-granulating pigments for the most part, but their ultramarine is actually the most granulating ultramarine that I have. The other one that was close was Core, but Mission Gold still granulated a lot more. Next, you see me looking for something to compare this Cobalt Blue number 2 to. It's PB28, which I only have in a turquoise variant from Turner, but this is one of those pigments that can really change depending on how you treat it. It's more comparable to the cobalts that are made with PB35 or cerulean, which is PB36. It's beautiful for a sky blue, it lightly granulates, so yeah, if you use that color, it would be fine for any of those purposes. Then we have Prussian Blue. I only have 3 samples of Prussian Blue. Here's Mission Gold's. It kind of has like a weird yellow tinge to it when you tint it out, which is kind of similar to the Schminke. The M. Graham's version does have a more blue or green undertone, and I do prefer M. Graham's version, but Mission Gold's version is just fine as well. Alright, then we've got Viridian, which it's not Viridian, it's Phthalo Green, but many brands call this color Viridian, even though that is incorrect. Viridian is PG18, this is PG7. It's Phthalo Green Blue shade, and it's pretty comparable to just about any other Phthalo Green, other than the Schminke, which is a bit on the lighter side, which is pretty typical for Schminke. Then I've got Bamboo Green, again, cutesy name, but it's just Phthalo Green yellow shade, which I don't have another sample of to compare it to, so I'm going to pull out my Daniel Smith dot chart page that I had hiding over in the corner to show you a comparison with their version. It's pretty darn comparable, and I think either one would be fine. Alright, then we've got our Yellow Ochre coming up. Now this is labeled as Yellow Ochre number 2, which means there's a number 1. The number 1 is made from 3 different colors, like I mentioned at the top of this video, and I don't really understand why. It's traditionally made with PY42, although this version of the PY42 is much more yellow and a bit flatter and not as vibrant as my other Yellow Ochre, so I would still definitely recommend Daniel Smith version. It does kind of remind me of Daniel Smith's Mars Yellow from this dot card. However, I've never used that color in person, so I don't know how it would do in a larger area. So next up I have Indian Red, which I don't have in another color, but I do have Venetian Red, and they're pretty similar. They're made with the same pigment, PR101. The Indian Red is slightly more purple than the Venetian Red, which is more of a bricky color. I think this is what you could call the closest version to a burnt sienna that this set has. I don't understand why Mission Gold doesn't make a PBR7 version of burnt sienna or burnt umber, or even a PR101 version like some other brands do. They make these weird triple color blends, and it doesn't mix well with ultramarine to get your grays and whatnot. The Venetian Red does mix better. It is a single pigment, but just know that there's no burnt sienna in this set. So I do also have a Perylene Maroon in this set. This one is really red. It's not what I would consider maroon, and when I compare it to Daniel Smith's version, which I forgot to do here, but I bring it back later in the video so that you can see it, the Daniel Smith version is much more rich and much more brown than this version. So you could probably consider this in with the rest of the reds. I put it in the earth tones just because it's on the border there, and there were already so many reds. So I don't have anything too terribly comparable to it. Just the similar ones that you would compare with the Indian red. And then we've got Red Brown, which is PBR25. This is Permanent Brown in Daniel Smith's version. My dot card, it's really hard to see that color. I'm sorry, it's really dark on there, but it's pretty much the same color that it is for Mission Gold. I think this is a really beautiful color. It's not super popular, but I definitely want to try and use it more. And then we're finally getting down to the home stretch here. I've got what they refer to as Van Dyke Brown. This is the closest thing this set has to a burnt umber or a sepia. It's kind of right in between the two. I do like this color a lot, and I would happily keep it on any palette, kind of in that place of a darker burnt umber type of color. So last up we have what they call Ivory Black, but I believe PBK7 is Lamp Black. I do have Ivory Black from Schminke, which is a darker version of this color. I don't really use black though, so I'm no expert in this field. It sits somewhere between Schminke's version and their graphite gray. Alright everyone, well I hope that this video was able to give you an idea of what colors come in this set and if that would be a good value for you personally. I can't make that decision for you because I don't know what type of artist you are. I would assume that this set would be more highly valued for floral painters than it is for wildlife painters like myself. I really prefer to have a lot more browns in my set, but it might make a good addition if you are looking to just acquire this brand. It sure is a savings. At the time of making this video, the Amazon price of this set is $94.50 USD, so about $95. So that averages less than $4 for a 15 milliliter tube of very high quality artist paint. It's often really hard to determine if paying for an entire set is worth it compared to just picking and buying your own tubes, but like I mentioned at the top of this video, these paints are really expensive on their own. However, I don't live in this world where I would use all these colors, so I'm going through here and you're going to see me kind of picking and choosing, you know, which colors would I actually use out of this set on a daily basis. Would it be worth it, even if I didn't touch, you know, however many tubes for me to get this set? And it turns out that after I took out, you know, all the extra reds, I went back and forth deciding on this yellow ochre here. I didn't think I'd use the Venetian red, so I took out all of these colors. There were 9 that I ended up taking out in total, and I was still left with 15 tubes of paint that I would see myself using on a regular basis. And 95 divided by 15 is still 6 1/3. So for just over $6 a tube per artist quality paint, this is still a great value. So I would recommend it if you like really vibrant colors. You could see when we were going over all of the swatch cards that it's definitely a departure from Schminke's softer version. But for those of you who like color, who like vibrancy, I think this is a great buy. Thank you, Katherine, once again for sending these. And as promised, I did want to go ahead and let you know about that second poll for the new mini-series. So I'm going to be doing a new mini-series featuring endangered species on this channel, and it's going to be a paint with me series. So you're going to get to paint along in probably mostly real-time videos. I don't know how the editing is going to go on those yet, but it will definitely not be as fast as the speed paints that I have in other places on this channel. And every week we're going to feature a new endangered species, and I'm going to use my animal background from being a zoo educator to apply it to these episodes to let you know what's going on in the conservation world, if you're so inclined to wanting to help these animals, what you can do, and even little everyday things that you can do around your own home that make a big impact globally. So if you want to help determine what species are going to be in that series, you can go ahead and check out my Patreon, and for just $1 a month, you can vote in any of these polls that I have to help form the channel content of this channel. So Thank you to all of my wonderful patrons who were supporting me, especially through that crazy month of April. I will make it up to you this month. We're going to have some great tutorials, and I'm really looking forward to getting back to the community. Thank you so much for watching this video, for liking, commenting, and subscribing, and I will see you on Friday when we wrap up our color mixing series, finally. All right, have a great one. I'll see you later. Bye.